Hello, welcome to the Analyst at the Ashes with me, Simon Hughes.
And me, Simon Mann. And first things first, happy birthday, Yoz.
Oh no, I don't want to be reminded of that, really. And it's so close to Christmas anyway that people sort of think it's a stupid birthday to have, because I only get one present, between the 2 5-day period. So, I just want to forget about it, really. I've had a lovely day watching England toil in the sun, both with bat and ball.
One thing I would say is you look very good for 82.
And so do you for 94. So we're a combined age of 157, is that? Anyway, how do we feel? Are we aged by watching England play in Adelaide? The state of the game, England 276 in their second innings, needing another 228 to win. Did you ever think they had a chance?
No.
No.
I mean, they were giving it a go, weren't they, before Harry Brook was out, and you thought, you think when you're chasing 435, you need a 180 run partnership, and you always feel with Australia and with the England batting lineup that there's a wicket around the corner, don't you? And they battled hard today. They fought. They actually did okay in the morning. We actually said on the podcast last night, if England were to say take the last 6 wickets for 100, they were chasing 450, then they would be compelled to go for it. To try to chase it down, because we were talking about the possibility of a draw, weren't we, last night, and saying, well, if they got 580, England might as well just play for a draw. Well, actually, they did better than that. They got those wickets cheaper than 100. So 435, they would have taken that at the start of the day's play, but it's the biggest run chase ever. If you're successful, it's the world record. So that tells you the degree of difficulty. And if you put England's batting in this series up against the way Australia have bowled and the fact you're playing in Australia, I would say a big fat 0.
Betfair odds, of course. I mean, do they need really reading out? Well, I am just going to tell you them anyway. So 96% Australia for this Test match, 2% England, 2% the draw. I mean, could there be rain that could come to England's aid? It's actually much cooler tonight in Adelaide. There's a few clouds above us. There is a tiny suggestion it might rain tomorrow, but not for long, I don't think.
Yeah, well, I think there's a combination of a tornado, a thunderstorm,
earthquake, maybe,
whatever. On the way. It's the only thing that's going to make this match a draw, isn't it? I can't see that. There was that famous Test match way back in 1975 where they poured oil. The protesters poured oil on the pitch at Headingley, and the match got abandoned. Well, that's kind of where
your lift has just gone, by the way. Look, the police horses were going to give us a lift back, but we've missed that one. Never mind. Sorry.
Yeah, some freak incident could make it a draw, but this game is going only one way. Those odds say that, and the scoreboard says that as well. There was some hope for England, but not very much, really.
No, I thought Pat Cummins today was outstanding with the ball. I mean, obviously, he didn't make much impression with the bat. And England, it was interesting watching England bowling today. Ben Stokes opened the bowling, and he hadn't bowled at all on the third day. And there was lots of speculation about, was he injured? Well, I said he was just exhausted. I suggested that to Ricky Ponting, and Ricky Ponting poo-pooed that idea. Said, look, how can he be exhausted during the Ashes? That's completely unacceptable. So there was something, whether he had an injection or whatever, made him okay today. But he bowled really well today. And we've been looking for someone, a bowler that can exert some kind of control. And I thought Stokes did that really well today, but he also exposed, or his bowling exposed England's lack of a partnership, because no one could support him the other end. Well, certainly he gave the opportunity to bowl at the other end to Bryden Carse, and Carse started, after Stokes had started with a really good opening over. Carse started with a wide long op, which was put away for 4. He then sort of strayed onto the legs of the left-handers. He was hit for another sort of sliced 4 by Travis Head as well, and he just couldn't have any control, and went for 26 off 3 overs, sort of backing up a little bit what Jason Gillespie was saying on the podcast yesterday, that England's bowlers A, can't bowl in partnerships, and B, can't sort of sustain any kind of pressure. So Stokes, probably feeling fairly fed up, then brought Josh Tongue in, and actually Tongue did all right in this match, didn't he? He's taken 5 wickets. He took 4 in this innings. And he actually has stood up quite well, but I think Carse has been a big letdown.
Yeah, because there is a 4 ball on the way, isn't there? So it's a relieving situation for a batter, you know you're going to get a bad ball to put away, so you just wait for it and then duly do it. You duly put it away. The difference with Australia, generally speaking, is that there aren't that many four balls knocking around, and they also they've had the field back, so cutting off the supply of boundaries as well. It just dries up those boundary balls.
So I mean, Carse actually is the second leading wicket taker in the series after Mitchell Starc, with I think 14 wickets, and he took 2 in 2 today. Nearly, it was on a hat trick actually. Could have got a hat trick at the end of the innings, but I feel that he's conceded 5 and over the series, and it just kind of it's a revealing fact that he hasn't been able to, often taking the new ball, he hasn't really been able to back up, say, Archer with that sort of consistency. And England they've always leaked runs at one end, when they give Jacks the ball, again, 5 and over. So they've never been able to apply pressure from both ends, whereas Australia do.
Yeah, and actually it goes back to 2010-11, wasn't it, where Stephen Finn was the leading wicket taker and then was dropped after the third test. Well, okay, they lost the match in Perth. He was the leading wicket taker because they felt that he could not provide the control that they needed. And of course, the rest is history. They won the last 2 matches, didn't they, in Melbourne with a revamped attack, Melbourne and Sydney, and they went on to win the Ashes 3-1. So, the Ashes are gone here, but there is a possibility of swapping, say, someone like Gus Atkinson in for Bryden Carse in the next Test match, or perhaps even Matthew Potts, someone that can bowl a line. That's asking a lot of Potts actually to come into the series, but he'll be willing if he's asked to do so, I'm sure. But all of this, I mean, we're talking about the future and what they could do and what they haven't done. I mean, the bottom line is the Ashes are gone, aren't they? It's going to be 3-0. Even Zach Crawley said, well, we can win the last 2, make it 3-2. I mean, this is before the game was even finished. They know the game is up in that dressing room. It would be a miracle of miracles. Is it more of a miracle than Headingley in 1981 if England were to win from here?
Yeah, much more. I mean, Botham was a class batsman, wasn't he? In at number 6.
They only had 3 wickets left. They were about 90 behind, though.
They were, but it was 90 behind. They're 228 behind with 4 wickets left. So, no, I don't think it's a similar situation. And also, this Australian attack, plus it's that the pitch is doing enough, isn't it? So it's going to be pretty tough for England to get up to 300, really, never mind 435. That's a hopeless cause. I mean, just focusing on England's attack for a minute, this is our Betfair exchange today, just talking about England's makeup of their attack. They had a big plan, didn't they, to go with pace, to hit Australia with pace. I mean, we talked about that. We talked about the past and Larwood in 1932, John Snow in the 70s. In the 80s, actually, when they won here in the 80s, it was more sort of medium pacers. Philip de Freitas, Gladstone Small, Ian Botham, who wasn't at his fastest, and 2 good spinners. And then, as you mentioned, 2010-11, when they won here, the leading wicket takers, Jimmy Anderson, Chris Tremlett, who wasn't rapid but got bounce, and then of course Tim Bresnan also played a part, and Graham Swan. So they were able to apply pressure, but here they've got the pace, or they did have at the start, but they haven't had that control, and that's what they've lacked. I mean, I wrote a piece about this in the Sunday Times today, and I sort of cited the example of a person I played against. And I've told this story before, I won't go into it too much, but facing a character in club cricket who was called Blood Clot. And he was called Blood Clot because he had a red face, but actually he also was a sort of tourniquet for the run rate as well, just chipping away, jabbing away like Scott Boland does. And that's kind of rooted in Australian bowling's DNA, is to just be relentless from both ends. And England haven't been able to do that. And that's partly because they've chosen bowlers who prioritise pace rather than accuracy.
Yeah, so another flawed strategy strand from England, is that what we're talking about? That actually they thought it was going to be about pace. Well, look, Mitchell Starc bowls rapidly, doesn't he? He bowls 145 right at the start of his spell. Cummins was in the 130s really, but
he's about 136.
Yeah, so that's not rapid,
that's 84, 85 miles an hour.
So anyway, Australia got some pace with Mitchell Starc and some quality as well. Let's be fair, he's a quality bowler. So was England's strategy wrong? I mean, we've known for the last couple of years that...
Well, you brought up that Steve Smith
Yeah.
quote, didn't you?
Yeah.
That he said, maybe England have got this wrong to focus on pace.
Yeah.
And these nibblers, he said, those little
Yeah.
medium pacers, fast medium bowlers who can just nag away at what Jason Gillespie calls a shoebox. Just keep hitting that patch. And especially as the match goes on, there were just little indentations or little little blemishes in the pitch, which can just help with a tiny bit of movement. Scott Boland has taken 10 wickets in the series at about 29, but he's been a kind of a base around which the other bowlers can bowl. And then we can come to Pat Cummins perhaps after the break, but they just have a lot more relentlessness in their attack.
Yeah,
and obviously backed up by Nathan Lyon as well.
Yeah, that's the key. You can have a strategy, you can have an idea of pace, but actually you've got to have the quality of bowler who can pull it off, really. Consistently bowl the line, consistently bowl the length that's at the batter the whole time. And in that Australia attack, okay, they've been missing a few as the series has progressed, but they've had Stark, who's got that quality. They've had Boland, who's really steady in this match, as you say. They've had Cummins, who's bowled really well and picked up wickets at vital times. Just an all-round better quality, and they have sort of kind of picked England apart. Quality, in these conditions, they've been a quality team, and just England have found their relentlessness too much.
Just thinking about England's bowling a little bit more, people will be saying, well, where are those line and length bowlers?
Because that's a traditional English
Yes,
quality thing, isn't it?
Yeah.
Line and length. I can
Line
hear
and
Fred
length.
Truman saying it. Where are those line and length bowlers?
Absolutely. And obviously Jimmy Anderson, Stuart Broad, Chris Wokes have all retired. Potts and Atkinson, who might well have bowled well in this game, have not been selected. Ollie Robinson, we said yesterday, out of favour. So there are bowlers that England could have picked. There's one or two others in county cricket I've looked at. Taylor of Worcestershire was the leading wicket taker. Do you know who I think is the closest to Scott Boland in English cricket? Is Kyle Abbott. And of course, he's an overseas player, so he's not qualified for England, which is a shame because he's exactly what England needs. Someone who's strong upper body, big legs, keeps going, just keeps nagging away, doesn't rely on swing. See, I think one of the things about English cricket, county cricket in particular, and I probably identify with this a bit, is the Duke's ball does flatter us a bit.
So it does too much.
It does too much. It does something every day, really. And
for longer.
Yeah, the seam is proud, the shine is sort of perma-shine, the ball stays in a nice round state mostly, and in English conditions where it's can be quite sort of damp overhead and damp underfoot, it will do something most of the time. And it's interesting, when we play with the Kookaburra, nobody can get a wicket. I saw Worcester, a fairly ordinary Worcester team, at the Utola Bowl in Southampton, gets sort of 680 or something, 700. Nobody can get wickets with the Kookaburra because we just lack that sort of discipline required, because we've been relying on the deviations and other kind of responsiveness of the Duke's ball. So it is tough when we come here with using the Kookaburra.
Yeah, and you mentioned some of those names. Those three players that retired, Jimmy, Stuart and Chris. They've been here a lot, haven't they? They've been here a lot, and England have not won a Test match since 2010-11. So that they have. So even that attack, that style of bowling, they found it difficult to take wickets in Australia at the required rate to put pressure on the Australian batting lineup.
But it's not only about the bowlers; it's also about the batsmen. And if the batsmen can score enough runs, then the bowlers of perhaps lesser calibre, like say Tim Bresnan, can take wickets. So in that 2010 series, the England team scored over 500 3 times, and someone like Tim Bresnan loves that, because A, he can put his feet up for a couple of days, and B, he can just nag away as the Scott Boland types do, and force a mistake. So what about England's batsmen? Zach Crawley played well today, 85, deserved 100, I thought. Really sort of applied himself. Duckett got out early. Funny, I watched Ben Duckett go out to bat with Crawley just before lunch, and he rehearsed a couple of leaves before Cummins bowled. and then he tucked Cummins' first ball away for 4, second ball, fishing outside off stump, pushing away everybody, caught slip. So he wasn't practicing what he was preaching there, or wasn't preaching what he was practicing rather. Disappointing. And, Ollie Pope, you felt a stay of execution. He played okay, but unlucky perhaps. Brilliant catch, brilliant diving catch by Labuschagne. But when luck is against you, those sort of things happen. Sequence of low scores. He's averaging about 16 against Australia. Now he made 17 today, but he's averaging only about 16 against Australia. So it's been a very difficult series for him. And I just thought, before we talk about England's batting overall, I thought I'd talk to the former Australian captain, Mark Taylor, who of course was also an excellent opening batsman and was leader of that beginning of that Australian dominance in the late 90s and early 2000s. I thought I'd ask him what he thought of England's top 3 today.
In this series, England's top 3 have no doubt struggled, but I think they've struggled because they're not used to the conditions here in Australia, and because they've played a certain way and they've been asked to play a certain way, they've struggled on the bouncier pitches. I've already seen a change in Zach Crawley today. 28 balls to get 1, and then he hits his first boundary because he got used to the pace and the conditions of the Adelaide Oval, which is still probably the best batting deck in Australia, but he's given himself a chance. I think Duckett looks confused at the moment. He's now not sure whether to go hard or not, and Ollie Pope probably a little bit the same. I'd be telling all 3 of them just to go back to basics a bit. There's nothing wrong with a bit of basics. Get used to the conditions and then flourish.
Does that mean then coming here early to get used to the pitches, or are all the pitches so different that doesn't make any difference?
Well, I think you've really got to get used to the pitches in the West. They definitely bounce more. The Optus Stadium, a bit like the Wacker, bounces more, and the Gabba can bounce more and seam more if you get the right sort of conditions. So yes, I think a couple of games before the first test on a bouncy pitch would have certainly helped England, because it's much easier to go, if you get used to bouncy pitches, to then get used to ones that don't bounce. It's not easy when you're used to low, slower pitches to go up. And that's where I think England struggled in the first 2 tests, and they're making adjustments now in the 3rd test.
And would you stick with Ollie Pope at number 3?
I don't think England have got much of a choice to be. I don't know a lot about Bethel, to be honest, but he doesn't demand selection. He doesn't have a first-class 100, so that makes it very hard to pick him. So I think England have got to pick and stick for the rest of the tour.
Yeah, I agree with Tubby, as everybody likes to call him, that Duckett and to a lesser extent Pope do look confused, and that it would have been better for England if they'd had a warm-up game or 2 just to get used to the extra bounce in Western Australia. And I like the fact that he said there that if you practice against the extra bounce first, then you can deal with the lower bounce later on. And Duckett, a couple of poor defensive shots in this test match. He looks pretty shot actually. Pope, well, Taylor says keep with him. What do you think?
I think it's hard to keep with him for the next Test match, especially if the Ashes have gone. England lost the series, or will have done tomorrow. Surely you try to reconfigure things. He does look like a player who's desperately struggling. In this Test match, a really poor shot in the first innings, a really poor shot at Brisbane in the second innings, and even this one, okay, it was a brilliant catch, and that kind of takes the headlines because you think, well, unlucky to get out to a catch like that, but he still nicked it, hasn't he? He still nicked it to slip, and it was quite a fidgety poke at the ball, and there just doesn't feel any sort of calmness about it. And to me, he looks like a player who needs just to be taken out of the Test match team. I'm not saying, no way would I say get rid of him. Some people say, oh, he should never play again. But he's about 27 years old. He's got quite a lot of Test hundreds. So I don't see that. I don't think it's like shut the door and throw away the key or anything like that. It's just sometimes a player just needs to come out of the team for a bit and work on their game, regroup mentally, physically, whatever, and then perhaps go again. But I've said to you, I don't feel, he doesn't look to me a natural number 3. It does look to me to be a decent middle order player, and he scored runs down the order. So whether there's going to be a vacancy there. So I think I agree there aren't that many alternatives though, other than Jacob Bethel, and that's throwing in someone who hasn't had a great deal of cricket and of course has never made first-class 100. So there are great options in the squad on this tour, but Pope to me does look like a player who needs to be taken out. As for Ben Duckett, I mean, I've said this in the past. I mean, over a 3-year period, he was one of the most improved players in the world, any country, and he's multi-formatted type player. He's in one of those runs that every cricketer has where you just struggle to score, and it's happened for a while now in all forms of cricket since the India series. He's struggled for runs, whether it be red ball, pink ball, white ball, whatever. He struggled. Remember he was taken out of back end of the English summer. He was given a rest, wasn't he, from the white ball team. So it's been a difficult time for him. Again, that the shot today was kind of inexplicable, really. Other than you've got a sort of scrambled mind, and kind of that's the way you play. But playing at a ball there in the last over before lunch, when you do think about survival and just about leaving, especially as he's practiced those leaves. I don't know what happens to a batter's mind in that situation. I don't know why you would play at that ball, because you don't need to. You actually have to make an effort to play at it rather than just play the line. And he nicked it, and Labuschagne took another catch. You can't take them all out, can you? You can't take them all out of the team because there aren't that many players left to come in. There isn't a reserve opener. But Ben Duckett is struggling. Zach Crawley was struggling, but he's come up with some runs, hasn't he?
I thought he played well today.
he
actually, he took a while to get past one. He got a single early on, and then actually left a lot. Played and missed a few times. But some very good balls were bowled by both Stark and Cummins, and he handled it well. He waited his time. He bided his time before playing a couple of big drives and a pull shot or two, and then actually played the spin well too. He went to reverse sweep 9 a couple of times and played him nicely through the leg side. I thought lots of normal sweeps as well. I thought he looked good. There was a partnership with him and Joe Root. Poor old Joe Root. He played nicely until his nemesis Pat Cummins came back on, and then it took only an over. And I watched that over very carefully. I thought, this is a key moment for Joe Root. He's on the strike against Pat Cummins, just coming back for his second spell. Will he get a couple away? Will he get off strike? And he was stuck down that end for 5 balls, and he was playing okay. But then, Cummins somehow just made him play at one. Was a little bit wide. He didn't need to play.
He was looking to run it down to deep third, wasn't he?
It was a bad shot.
Yeah.
It was a bad shot.
Yeah.
And Cummins
he knew it as well, didn't he? I was
Yeah.
absolutely furious. A bit like Ben Stokes in the first innings. Just punched the back of his back. You could see his physical rage out there. You don't see that happen very often. You see batters sort of throw the head back, but he actually just punched the bat. Similar to Ben Stokes in the first innings.
And the 13th time that Cummins has got him out.
He averages 22 against Cummins.
Yes. Yeah, and there's no shame in being dismissed by Pat Cummins, but he's so clever. I've been watching him closely. Do you know he's missing part of his middle finger on his right hand, on his bowling hand? And I don't know if that helps him at all, but he's only got, I think he got shut in a car door when he was young. So he's got a bit of his middle finger on his right hand missing, and whether that helps him, manipulate the seam a bit more, I'm not sure. But
these Aussies will do anything, won't they, to take Test match wickets?
I know. But and he's, he just slightly angles his position of the ball in his hand, just slightly angles his position of his feet on the crease, and he sustains that excellent speed, about 85, 86 miles an hour, and he's at you all the time. I watched today the warm-ups. I watched the Australians warm up, and I watched England warm up on the bowling on that side pitch. And Cummins, all that length, every ball. When Scott Boland warmed up, he bowled 3 balls off a full length, full run up against the plastic stumps, hit them all 3 times, and then he walked off. And I watched England warm up, and they barely ever hit those stumps. They kind of was a bit too short, going over the top or down the leg side. Quite revealing.
Should we talk about Harry Brooks' dismissal? Now, if you see this in isolation, it looks dreadful, doesn't it? Reverse sweep, Nathan Lyon, got a straightish ball and bowled leg stump on that just spun a bit, just enough after he missed the reverse sweep.
Bowled him behind his legs.
Yeah, bowled him behind his legs. What about the context of that? The only thing I would say about that, people say, why are you playing a shot like that? Nathan Lyon, quality bowler. So you can't just let him bowl at you. And actually they were successful against him, sweeping him, Crawley to some extent, and reverse sweeping him as well. They were getting him away, and he went for about 50 off 10 overs.
Yeah.
So what do you say about it? Is it just part of the game? Actually, you have to have that in your locker against the spinner on a pitch that is offering some spin to a quality player, or is it just is it a poor decision, or is it just a poor execution of a stroke? What's your conclusion about it?
If you ask the Indians, say, how do they play Nathan Lyon? They never do that shot, never play that shot. I mean, maybe Rishabh Pant might, but someone like Virat Kohli will never play that shot. He will only ever work him with the spin and occasionally perhaps look to cut, and that's it. He'll never look to sweep. The trouble with sweeping, especially reverse sweeping, is it is premeditated. Even the conventional sweep is a bit premeditated. You're thinking, as the ball is coming down, I'm going to sweep. Sort of almost before he's let go of it, I'm ready to sweep. And you can bail out of an orthodox sweep, but you can't really adjust very easily a reverse sweep. I mean, you can watch the ball and get the bat down still if it's a bit fuller than you thought, but it is a big risk because it is so premeditated and because you've so significantly adjusted your position. And I think that was a clever bit of bowling by Lyon. It was just a bit slower, a bit higher, and Brook was through the shot. It looks horrible when it goes wrong. I totally understand why they play it, and I mean, Root in particular plays it very well. I would prefer to see them bide the time a bit longer and play it a bit less regularly than they do. Well, I mean, the trouble is, you've only got one chance in batting, haven't you? And when you get it wrong, it looks really awful.
Yeah.
It's not really. To me, it's not a percentage shot, but these guys practice it so much that I guess it is for them.
Yeah. And of course, what it did was it just opened the way for Lyon to really get into his spell there. And suddenly he got one, he got two, he got three. So he bowled Ben Stokes with a really nice ball.
He did. I thought Stokes played it badly. He bowled Stokes early on. And the trouble is that Stokes has played Lyon really well in the first innings because he moved his front foot out and got to the pitch and smothered it. But this ball, which was quite full, he was on the crease. And what he tends to do against spin is he plays back and then tries to get forward, but his front foot is only just on the crease. And that was the case today. He didn't get his front foot very far forward. He didn't get his weight forward, and therefore he couldn't smother the spin. He probably thought he was further forward than he actually was. Whereas in the first innings, he got a proper stride in and managed to smother the spin. So he was done there for length a bit by Lyon. It was a good ball, but he should have played it better.
Yeah, well, it came in with the angle, pitched on, and then spun a bit and bounced a bit and hit the top of off stump. That, I mean, might get me out, might get you out, yours.
Oh yeah, absolutely, 100%. But he could have played it better, and he is a bit prone to sometimes staying back too much, and the fuller length then deceiving him.
Yeah, and then he gets two and he gets three because the nice tempting delivery for Zach Crawley. He goes to the drive, wide open spaces in front of him to get more runs as he's moving towards his 100, and a beautiful piece of work from Alex Carey behind the stumps.
I mean, it's inevitable, isn't it, in the end, that on a fourth day pitch with lots of runs to play with, that Nathan Lyon is going to take wickets. It's turning enough. I know you love watching him bowl, so do I. The kind of the style, the rhythm, the temptation, the control, the variation.
The control. Actually, fundamentally, it's the control that I really like to start with. You've got that absolute fundamental basics to his bowling.
If you compare, it's a bit of an unfair comparison, but if you compare Will Jacks's bowling to him, Jacks drags one down. There's a drag down every over. Did we see it? Do you ever see Nathan Lyon bowl short? No, you don't. I mean, batsmen get back and make a sort of length ball into a short ball so they can work it away on the offside, but it's not actually short. It's only fractionally short. And his control is fantastic. And he hardly ever bowls a full toss either. I mean, he's a world-class bowler with 67
Test match wickets.
67 Test match. So he's got 140 odd to go to 160 odd to go to Shane Warne.
Yeah. Well, he's 38.
158.
He's played 141 Test matches.
A finger spinner.
Yeah. England would take him, wouldn't they?
Absolutely. Could we transfer him, maybe?
Yeah.
Of course, this is his home ground. He was a groundsman here, wasn't he, originally?
Right.
About 15 years ago.
Well, in football, of course, you can just get the chequebook out, can't you, and pay 50 million quid or 100 million quid for a player like that, or whatever you want to pay for him, but not in international cricket. So it's nearly done, yours, isn't it?
We've got 2
wickets
tests to go, though.
Yeah, 2 tests to go, and England are, well, they're playing not to lose 5-0, aren't they? It's as simple as that. It's going to be 3-0 tomorrow. What they have done is they've taken it into a 5th day.
They're getting slowly better, aren't they? 2 days, 4 days, 5 days.
Yeah.
Maybe the next one will be a draw.
Yeah, well, that's what they'll be hoping, or to get something from the game, won't they? Or get something from the series, I should say, after what has been absolutely, desperately disappointing. So the last knockings tonight.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, 11:30 p.m. on TNT Sports. You better make sure you stay up for it because it might not last all that long. So let's hope they can at least take it past the lunch interval tomorrow and give us a couple of hours of play to enjoy. And we'll be back tomorrow at the end of the game to review it. And by the way, thanks very much for all your messages and comments on YouTube. We'll filter them all tomorrow and read some of them out and comment on them. So keep them coming, and we'll try and do a big sort of question time comment session after play tomorrow.
Yeah, because there might not be much play to talk about tomorrow.
Exactly.
But there's always something to talk about in the world of Ashes cricket. So thanks so much for listening, and goodbye for now.